What a historic day! We at the Peoria Riverfront Museum are so delighted to have President Theodore Roosevelt back in Peoria 114 years after his last visit here. President Roosevelt has come to help us celebrate the museum's new exhibition, Faces of a Nation, the American Political Textile Collection of Mark and Rosalind Schenkman. This spectacular exhibition is the largest known display of early presidential campaign textiles and features more than 40 past presidential campaigns, including, of course, Teddy Roosevelt. Roosevelt last visited Peoria on October 12, 1910, where he famously visited Grandview Drive and remarked on its beauty. And helping us to recreate this magic moment today are our friends at the Wheels of Time Museum, who've generously provided a period vehicle for the drive. So
Huzzah! Huzzah!
Thank you so much for that partnership. Of note, President Roosevelt originally rode in a Peoria Heights-made Glide automobile, and while we couldn't find a roadworthy one, there is a beautiful Glide that has been restored, 1916 Glide, on view at the Wheels of Time Museum, so I encourage you to go check that out. President Roosevelt is going to be giving a speech tonight at the museum, at the Peoria Riverfront Museum on our giant screen theater. And after the speech, guests are invited to visit the Faces of the Nation exhibit and take photos with the president. I also want to make sure to thank the Peoria Historical Society for their support, and the Riverfront Museum's Visionary Society and the Sagamore Society for their sponsorship of this event. And I'd now like to introduce our president and CEO, John Morris.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. President, welcome back to Peoria. Thank you, Nichelle Osoris, our Director of Education, to the entire staff, and on behalf of the Board of Directors of the Peoria Riverfront Museum, the only museum of its kind in America, a museum of art, science, history, and achievement. Mr. President, welcome back to Peoria. You were here in 1910 on this, the world's most beautiful drive, to declare it so, and it is an honor to have you back home. So thank you for the work you do in your interpretation of President Roosevelt, and without further introduction, let's all hear it for Teddy Roosevelt.
Hey! Thank you, President Morris. I am Theodore Roosevelt, and I'm delighted to be back in Peoria, and most especially to be here on Grandview Drive. Yes, the world's most beautiful drive. I'm delighted as well to be here in support of the wonderful work being done by your Riverfront Museum. I was myself a bit of a historian. Some of you might know I wrote some 30 books during my lifetime. I didn't write well, I simply took well to writing. But amongst those were works of history. My first book was a naval history of the War of 1812. I wrote a 4-part history, The Winning of the West. It told the story of the settling in over the Alleghenies and the Cumberlands, the settling of the Ohio River and the Mississippi River valleys. And though I did not win the presidency in 1912, I was elected president that following year of the American Historical Association. So you're keeping history alive. You're a wonderful place along the river for families and children. When I tour the country, I often remark upon the crops or upon the manufacture. But the most important crop and the most important thing made are the young people that come from your schools and your families. And I would say the future of Peoria is bright indeed on that count. So I'm also glad that you're keeping history alive and that so many of you have welcomed me appropriately. You've said, hello, Teddy, or good afternoon, Mr. President. You all now know that I ask my friends to call me by my old military title, Colonel, from my brief time in the 1st United States Volunteer Cavalry. History remembers us as the Rough Riders. All of those greetings, historically accurate, stand in such stark contrast to one young man that saw me recently. I had my top hat. He pointed at me and told his friends, he said, "Look, there's the Monopoly dude." If they knew their history as well as you do, they would have known I was the anti-Monopoly dude, the great trustbuster. So tonight, we'll relive the old regimental song. It'll be a hot time in the old town tonight at the Riverfront History Museum here in Peoria. Thank you all for coming here as we celebrate what occurred here in October of 1910 when I had my wonderful drive along the world's most beautiful drive in Peoria, Illinois. Bowling.